The Gray Papers, a sequel to As the Clock Ticks. We need to sit down and talk about it at least. We're almost headed to war, and possibly a world war at that. I just feel it would be safer, for all of us. What do you think? I asked Bernice. Oh, Frank, can't we do this the right way? I mean, do you really want us to have completely new identities? She replied. I need you to trust me. That's all I need. I have the entire process well thought out, and I'm confident that I have every angle covered. This is the right way, I said. Bernice made a smile towards me and laid down in bed. I got up quietly and went back to my office to make more progress on relocating from our home to a remote village in Alaska. I was also working on changing our names officially, and a mission to uncover top-secret information. I had myself convinced that the Data Enforcement Corps attempts to give me a new life would be less than suitable for our family after what happened. The truth was, I got so bored combating our biggest enemy in Iran, the IDNF, Iranian Daesh National Forces. The technology in this era was light years from how things were before the Arbiter incident. It wasn't even fair until a point. I worked for DECOM as a data enforcer, a cybersecurity agent. It was our mission to make peace talks with the Slybons, an alien race known to prey on humans. Our lightspeed generator aboard Arbiter, which was the spaceship we were on, had malfunctioned, causing 6,000 years to pass, and all of us somehow survived. Overseas, we hadn't suffered a casualty yet. Yes, it was fish in the barrel until the IDNF started to piece together tactical magnetic nukes. We wore special suits and electronic systems that were nearly 100% effective against the radiation. But the magnetic honing technology only assisted the nuclear bombs to impede our efforts. The devices were called the LMXW, Low Frequency Magnetic Experimental Weapon. They looked similar in dimensions compared to a current-era plasma rifle, and the weapon held a single magnetically guided bullet with a payload that would deliver a nuclear explosion, complete with fallout. Interestingly, the magnetic field in the bullet could detect and follow human beings due to metallic elements in the bloodstream. The effects of the blast were physically and psychologically massive. Each explosion had a 100-yard diameter of flame and concussive waves. Not to mention was the ensuing nuclear fallout, spreading miles and miles depending on the weather and other factors. Many DECOM recruits and military members, due to the brutality of battle and an impending war, were discharged for medical reasons. Some didn't make it. My fellow enforcers and I were offered relocation services. I accepted the offer, but I knew how narrow the parameters would be. I could see holes in that plan. My belief was that I had to escape a possible war, a government contract, change my identity, and who knows what else. I did have a little secret. The military units fighting IDNF alongside us were nothing but heroic and brave. The casualties and increasing trend of PTSD and war weariness built up fast, and they continued to overcome it at any cost. And now that the enemy had pointier sticks, I was finally roused from my boredom. On the other hand, I figured this new obstacle of radiation poisoning was at least gradually shortening my lifespan. We hadn't seen any symptoms yet, but it was only a matter of time with the current cure. I also wanted to find some information, and no one would listen to me. But I had a guy in mind. I found out 3 weeks earlier from my soldier friend Bill that the idea of LMXW even existing was not being disclosed to the public. That was the secret. My plan was to find the person who decided not to release the info. I talked to dozens of people, confidentially of course, and not a single one had an answer. It was like it was being covered up. Weirdly, there wasn't a physical document available or anything about it online. And then I thought, of course, what was I thinking? This is top-secret information. I didn't have a security clearance, not even as a data enforcer. At first I thought there was no way I could access any information about the person or group who made this decision. Not in the field. The Data Enforcement Corps Command graciously allowed me to return home to my family, with the unfortunate stipulation that we would cooperate with the witness protection program created by them. I, of course, thought living in a location decided by the government amidst other specifics wasn't conducive to my better interest. What I was going to do would put me on a watch list, and kept me just shy of paranoid. This mission was going to be challenging, infiltrating the CIA. They have a server as a file in the LMXW, and my cover story seems perfect, asking them why the info isn't released. To me, this development would rattle the political sphere and the general public, sure, but I was thinking the world's best experts should be totally involved in peacekeeping efforts. You can't just cover up a borderline apocalyptic scenario, right? I think the issue is political. Every government wants their people to trust them, to agree with them. Today, I suppose I'm getting used to living so far in the future. It's like major jet lag. Luckily, we've inhabited other planets in the universe, and aging is obsolete, eliminating a natural cause of death. The transition has been hard for everyone. Bernice waited for me, and I owe the entire world for that. And then some. The last thing I wanted to see were possible repercussions from the government or the terrorist organization I was fighting. The downside to my mission was that I would invariably become a fugitive. I could justify this in a rather straightforward way. This information is of concern to everyone, and lives are at stake. To me, that was enough. I had to hack the server to get the info. This required line of sight. The servers are controlled by an infrared receiver and remote. I handcrafted a replica after tipping off a contact I have there. He's also the one who got me the meeting with the media liaison for even more info. 6 a.m. the next day. CIA HQ. I stepped out of my car, a black concept car that hovered above the road and had no tires. I slid my key card at the door and was ushered in by an armed guard. I smiled briefly and set my gun, wallet, and accessories on the x-ray machine. They took my gun, gave me a retrieval number for it, and I picked up my stuff. I looked at the map as if I didn't know where to go. I noticed as many, if not more, security cameras than there would be at a bank. Keeping my head low, I headed off to the media liaison's office. Wanda Sherbert was her name. I knocked twice and she welcomed me in. Hi, Frank, so what brings you in today? I wanted to talk to you about something. I'll get straight to the point. Why does the general public have no idea we're on the brink of apocalypse because of nuclear weapons? That they're being deployed like hotcakes right now. Why is this information being hidden? I said. Wanda took a pause and looked briefly uncomfortable before replying. Well, you see, Frank, it's a matter of national security directives. You should know that. Frank interrupted her. You just don't want anarchy or impeachment. You really think fake news will solve a possible war? Wanda seemed to struggle smiling. She said, I don't know what you're talking about. This agency employs the best in the world. Now I don't even know you, but for some reason I'm going to help you. I'll give you some information. Most people can't handle the truth. They want rainbows and butterflies, not the stuff we deal with. You signed a non-disclosure agreement, right? It's pretty comprehensive, Frank. There are balances that have to be made. Checks, too. We're playing a fair ball game here. I'll also tell you that this comes from the top. And with that, she escorted me out into the hallway. I thanked her and went into the stairs. I found a large bed on my schematic and slipped inside. I made my way from the server room and snuck in. From there, I located the right server and hit my remote. The drive instantaneously flashed and transmitted every file I was interested in to my personal encrypted email. Yes, I thought. I retraced my steps and made it back to my car, drove home, and laid in bed next to an unknowing Bernice. Morning, Burr, I said. Good morning. How was your meeting? It went well. Listen, about the plan. I really thought it over, and if you and the kids want to stay, you're of course welcome to. But I'll have to be leaving. Today. Actually, Frank, I was about to tell you, we're completely packed. I packed for you, even. Are you ready? I held back a sigh and hugged my wife. We saw eye to eye on this. Finally, we could depart for the village. I checked my email and saw the message, which had all its attachments of everything about the IDNF tactical magnetic nukes. I nicknamed the project the Gray Papers, representing the middle of a divided morality. I forwarded it to every media outlet that had a reputation for unbiased reporting. I wrote, To whom it may concern, I believe this information should be public. There are people dying, and their families are left wondering, or they're left to believe in some fake news stories. People have a right to know the truth. Let them decide. Frank. I was setting up a conference call station on the dashboard of my car to talk with media contacts. Just then I heard Lionel scream. Not just any playful scream. This is the sound you dreaded to hear. I dropped everything and ran inside and up the stairs to his room. I opened the door and there's a suited man holding him hostage with a handgun. An H&K USP-40. Extended magazine, hollow sight, crimson trace, laser. This guy nods at me and says, Listen, give it back and we can talk. Wait, I didn't do anything. Let go of him. I replied. The man let go of Lionel and ran sobbing back to me. Frank, I'm with the CIA, and until you hand over the documents, let's just see you'll see a lot of me. I replied, Yes, seems you've made yourself welcome. It's too bad you won't remember this. I gestured to Bernice, who shot the agent with a tranquilizer gun. The agent collapsed immediately, sneezing soundly. Amazingly, there was only one agent dispatched to my place. This made things much easier. We filled the car as much as possible and sped off across the country. The journey to Alaska was nerve-wracking. We left the sleeping agent at our home. I knew there was only so much time before the leak was published and things would get really exciting, to put it one way. Living life on the run was risky, and it could be dangerous sometimes. It was smooth sailing until we reached Colorado and I got a call from a media contact at the Washington Post. The conversation was held over a cheap prepaid cell phone with a different number and registered to an alias. Frank, we've received your email and this is amazing. How did you do it? We could use some more background information. What would you say to being interviewed? You should publish the story and after we meet in person. I'll be looking forward to the interview. Goodbye. I hung up. The family and I found a 3-star Motel 6 to spend the night and we had dinner at a local diner. I told Bernice about being an interviewee. She was hesitant to show approval at first, yet I was the master and commander. I felt so confident I could sway her my way. I ended up winning her over. I went through the files some more, waiting in the motel lobby for the reporters. They wrapped a little past noon and we got to work right away. I started off with telling them what I thought about the tense conflict in Iran. I explained that I had seen firsthand the impact of the new weaponry, and it was just a disaster. They also brought us measuring points, and the cameras were rolling. A female reporter who went by Sierra began, "So you're saying we should publish all of this? Have you considered the repercussions? I mean, we're the middleman here. You, on the other hand, where's your defense? You know, a backup plan." Publish what you think should be out there. The more the better, though, in my mind. I'm dropping off the grid and disappearing. This is Frank Stewart's last time to shine. Moving forward, I'm getting a new name, a new job, everything. I'm completely changing my identity, along with my family. In my mind, we should be prepared for political unrest, and hopefully peace talks instead of an arms race, I replied. How did you do it? I staged a meeting with the media liaison at the agency. I gleaned the fact that she was the one in charge of not disclosing this technology and related events. I transferred the files from a server room. Carefully, I answered. The rest of the interview went well and without interruption. They said they would try to publish a bigger percentage of what I gave them. The timeline to publish moved quickly, and my disappearance was well underway. We made it to Seattle and opted to splurge on a fancy vacation home with a beautiful nearby restaurant. The kids were having fun, and so were Bernice and I. We left by plane, heading towards the closest airport to our destination. From there, we would take a propeller-powered bush plane into a native community in the remote wilderness of eastern Alaska. On a small plane with Bernice and the kids, I was so glad we were no longer to be known as the Stewarts. I'd always dreamed of doing what I loved, learning the ways of bushcraft. I would have plenty of chances to expand on this knowledge. It would be a necessary endeavor as well. The nearest grocery store was only accessible by plane or motorboat, and was over 50 miles away. Grocery runs were made every 3 months. The majority of our food and water would come from nature. We got there at about 6 p.m. on a sunny June evening. I opted to get going on shore, tilling the garden bed and organizing the cabin. It was a cozy hideout. There was a wood stove and a small kitchen, and the bathroom was outside. There was no plumbing, and the only source of electricity was a gas-powered generator, which was turned on only for emergencies or other important needs. I finished my work for the day and plopped onto my side of the bed. Bernice was teaching Sam about beginning bushcraft, of wilderness survival. He was 15 years old at the time. Lionel was now a strapping 23-year-old who left his job as a paralegal in Brooklyn, New York, not all too far from where we lived previously. Lionel was also an Eagle Scout. He might have been a little rusty on his training with all the time that had passed, but he felt confident that he stopped resting with me until Sam was being taught more advanced subjects, when he would resume learning with us. I put my head back on the pillow and began to visualize the best possible outcome for any decision I would have to make. I was good at this. I did have some remorse for what I did. My work would change the course of history. It would probably create political unrest, and I would need to continue alerting capture. But it would also work out in the sense there was now more transparency, thanks to me, of the horrors of war. The nuclear weaponry will hopefully be outlawed, and I thought most likely our family would be okay. Living in the wilderness these days had its fair share of hazards. Of course, there would be nearby villagers to help us if they needed to. Food and water shortages were very real possibilities, especially in the middle of winter when the river connecting the village to the nearest city would flood. Though everyone was considered an expert boat captain, minus the kids, the flooding in Alaskan winters was unprecedented and unpredictable. No access to health care meant we would have to fend for ourselves to stay healthy and in shape for our daily chores and adventures. The flora and fauna were as abundant as it was diverse. Some were dangerous, though I thought the real danger was going to be the IDNF or the US government tracking me down. My suspicions turned out to be valid. It was mid-October, and there was about 2 feet of snow on the ground. The temperatures were dropping, hovering just below freezing. Bernice and I were teaching Sam and Lionel about bushcraft together. We were huddling around the campfire, going over the Bola knot, which is a knot with many uses, and studying other knots of interest to us. Suddenly, the kerosene lantern hanging from our clothesline exploded, and it was pitch dark besides the dying fire in front of us. I heard many footsteps in the brush around us. I motioned for my wife and the kids to get in the cabin quickly. I followed them inside and threw the mattress off the bed frame. Underneath laid a loaded MP5 submachine gun and an M4 carbine variant. These were stashed away semi-legally from my days at DECOM. They were both fully automatic and internally suppressed, meaning they could fire rounds very rapidly and quietly. There was also a loaded Glock handgun, hundreds of rounds of ammunition, and a detonator for plastic explosives disguised around the cabin. I handed my wife the MP5 to protect herself and Sam and Lionel in the cabin. I took the rest of the lot, pressed the detonator button, and stepped outside. I dumped a bucket of water on the almost out fire. A plume of smoke and steam billowed up from the fire, and a handful of explosions went off, sending off bright consecutive flashes of light, blast waves, and deafening booms. This created a perfect distraction for me. I could hear men screaming, apparently hit by my blasts. I went behind the cabin and spotted 5 or so shadowy figures. I lined up my thermoscope on them and sprayed a burst at each figure's torso and head. They all dropped, and I kept scanning for more threats. Then an infiltrator fell onto me from the roof. I yelped in surprise and got into a tussle with him. Eventually I was able to get to my feet and subdued him with a headshot from my Glock. I had no idea who these guys were. No ID, no clothing labels, not even an etching on any gear. I collected the bodies and just buried them. The graves were shallow, almost too noticeable for my liking. But I was in a rush. Whoever these guys are, they were certainly well equipped. Black, full tactical gear, AK-47s, with night vision goggles. I gathered together my family and were greeted by an older woman in a military uniform. Hi, my name is Zoe. I'm with the NSA. I'm actually somewhat disappointed that Posse didn't kill you. They were IDNF. My eyebrows shot up. No wonder. So you're going to arrest me? I said. I'm supposed to be, yes. However, I will give you one last chance. Cooperate with me and you have a shot at a new life. What do you say? I'm okay with that. Does this mean you're taking me in? I said. You'll have to come with us, yes, said Zoe. Okay, I sighed. I truly love bushcraft. It was my passion. I figured I could return to the woods after jumping through hoops with the Zoe character. I could tell my family wanted solace from living life on the run. And really there was no other option. This was the only way to avoid jail time. Or worse.